I've mentioned on this channel before how fascinated I am with the Red Shadows faction of the UK Action Force toy line. And one of the coolest pieces, one of those grail pieces from that toy line was the original Roboskull, which looks like a red TIE fighter where the centerpiece is a skull. I mean, how can you not love something like that? I've never been able to track down the vintage one to add to my collection, at least not yet, but 2 years ago, a Kickstarter launched for a brand new version of this particular item. It's a great homage to this amazing vehicle from the old Action Force toy line titled Roboskull Mk II. I was so excited by this Kickstarter that I jumped on it instantly, and now here we are 2 long years later, and Roboskull has finally shipped. Let's take a look at it. So yes, 2 years, long time, but there's a long time in toy production. This was a Kickstarter after all, so essentially they were asking for help to fund this thing. It was a small independent team of people who have been involved in the toy industry for quite some time, doing something really cool and really different. And that right there got my attention. I loved the look of this thing, so it was a pretty easy decision to finally get a Roboskull of some sort in my collection. It was a long wait, but they have finally started shipping, and that is what we're going to take a look at today. And we've got to start with this. Look at this amazing box. First of all, big box, but we got to talk about how incredible that box art is, right? I mean, that's the mark of an amazing toy, especially from the 80s and the 90s. They always had such incredible artwork on the box to help sell the toy, to help make that world feel exciting, and they definitely accomplished that with this amazing box right here. But we gotta see what's inside the box. So let's rip it open and check out Roboskull Mk II. There it is, Roboskull Mk II. It's pretty impressive. So let's start talking about it. Now, one of the things I will say about this is that it was very easy to assemble. In fact, most of this was already put together in the packaging. There was very, very little assembly required on this. It does come with a sheet of instructions that shows you everything you need to do, but essentially, all we had to do out of the box was pop the wings on. They just snapped on right in place. We had to assemble some of the guns and everything on there, but that was pretty much it. It was really easy to put together, and everything feels solid and sturdy. Like, this feels like a good, solid toy, which is something that makes me very happy to say. Now, the other thing, when I initially pulled this out of the box, I was like, oh no, I gotta put stickers all over this thing. However, this sheet of decals right here is not like a mandatory list of decals. This is all up to you. This is a way that you can deck out your Roboskull with different effects. Like if you want to put some flames on there or any of these other stickers, you can do that. This is not something that you have to do. In fact, all of the actual stickers, all of the actual decals, like all of the decals on the monitors and everything on the inside of the cockpit and all the way around here, all of that is already on there. So this thing basically comes out of the box ready to go. Just by snapping on some pieces, the wings, the cannons, boom, you're good to go. This thing is ready for display. And like I said, it is really well done, and I could tell that right out of the box. Now let's talk about how big this thing is. If I put the tape measure in front of it here, you can see that he stands just about 10 inches tall. And then in this mode right here, the way I've got him docked, let's just go wing to wing. You're looking 14, maybe pushing 15 inches across, depending on the way you position the wings, because you can actually articulate the wings a little bit there. So it is a big vehicle. It is a beast of a vehicle. And you can see that I've got some action figures standing in front of it because I do want to talk about scale with this. One of the things that is so neat about this particular vehicle is that it is designed so that it can work with your 4-inch figures or your 6-inch figures. Yeah, that's right. It could go both ways. Now, the vehicle itself does come with one exclusive 4-inch figure, being this Blood Wolf right here. This is very nice. It comes on its own card back within the box there. So this is one of the modern style articulation figures. I actually took a look at some of these figures early on because they released a bunch of their own figures before the actual Roboskull itself shipped. So really nicely articulated. It's like a modern 4-inch figure. Now, they also did a retro O-ring style figure. This did not come with it, the Skeletron here, but I did take a look at this earlier in the year. I wanted to get this in here as well because I want to show how this functions with your vintage O-rings, with your modern 4-inch figures, but also can work with your modern 6-inch figures. So if I bring in your classified Cobra Commander, you can see how he scales with the Roboskull. Now, he does look a little big standing with it there, but the way they designed the cockpit, it's actually going to fit a 6-inch figure on the inside. So this could work whichever way you want to display it. If you want to display this with your 4-inch figures, great. If you want to put it with your G.I. Joe classified figures, that can totally work. So we will get into how that functions in just a bit. For now, I'm going to move the figures off to the side because we want to take a look at the actual vehicle itself and check out some of the features here. So what you see right now is sort of like its docked mode. The wings have the ability to rotate facing upwards like this, and you can fold. You can see you got these nice hinges here on the wings. So you can have it sitting on your shelf just like this. It almost has like this spider-like look to it, which is pretty cool. But when this is ready for flight, the wings will click forward just like that. And then if you want to, you can move these hinges so that they're more, straight up and down. You can have them kind of cocked out to the side like that if you want to. So this is your flight mode for the Roboskull. So it's really cool that you've got the different ways that you can set this up for display. The overall design is just really incredible. That skull looks fantastic. This thing is so big, like the skull itself is almost life-size, like to an actual human. This feels almost like you're holding a human skull in your hand as far as the overall scale goes. And the deco is really great because the skull parts here almost have a more like bone-like look to it. And it's even got this like kind of black wash in there. So it's just got this really great detail. All the teeth look nice and detailed. But then the ship parts around it look almost more glossy and like a cleaner red than the rest of it. Almost like they built a ship around an actual giant skull, which is pretty cool looking. If we kind of rotate this around to the side, I'll give you a closer look at the wings there. The wings are done in like this smoky, translucent gray plastic there, and you can see there's some nice decals on there. There's some shiny silver paint on the cannons, so all of this looks really nice. You can see the hinges right here for the joints so that you can clip those wings a little more outwards in that spider-like pose that I showed you, or you can make them a little bit more flush if you want to. And as we rotate around to the back side here, you can see we've got these great thrusters on the back. I'm actually going to move this outwards just to make it a little bit more stable for showing this. So we got the thrusters on the back. You can see we got these rear cannons up here that can move up and down. And we've got this fun little piece right here, which is detachable. Look at this. This slides right out of the back. This right here is like a way to deploy these awesome little drones. Now they sold these drones in individual blister cards as well, but 3 of them come with the Roboskull Mark II. And it's got this really great translucent red and gray casing here. You can see there's a translucent red window on the top. And as this folds out, you can see you can pull out each of these great little Skeletron drones here. And they articulate, and you got the great little spider legs. These are fantastic. These are fun little toys, and I did take a look at these earlier in the year as well, but it's really cool that you've got like this little case here that basically deploys these out into battle. Another thing that's really cool about this, if you want to display this like separate from the ship, you get this great little translucent base that sort of looks like smoke or exhaust blowing out that plugs right there into the bottom of it. So that way you can display it down here next to the ship as if it is coming down, landing on the planet next to it, or maybe hovering next to the ship. I thought that was a really nice touch. And again, it just stores right there in the back of the ship. You can see it just slides right here, clicks into place. There you go, right there back into the ship. On the underside of the ship down here, you do have these dual cannons, and this is also articulated, so you can actually articulate that up so it's a little bit more underneath the jaw. You can lower it down. It's got like an articulated arm there, so that way you can move them pointing downwards, move them pointing more forwards. So there's lots of different ways you can aim that. And then the mouth on the ship here actually has the ability to open as well, which reveals even more missile launchers on the inside of the mouth, which is incredibly cool. You'll also notice we've got a little peg hole there, which is for one of the accessories, which I think brings us to a great moment where we can talk about all of the really cool items that we can attach to the ship. So where I want to start with this is the eyes. The deep black eyes here actually have some different attachments. Now, the standard way to display this is with these tiny little black pegs you can see on the inside of the eyes. Now, one thing I will say, those are incredibly hard to plug in and pull out because the space here is just not big enough for me to get my fingers in there and really get a good hold on those pegs. So I would definitely recommend using some tweezers of some kind, but what we can do is we can grab a hold of those little pegs and we can pull those out. These are tiny too, so it's definitely something that you want to be careful. You don't want to lose these. I am so terrified of losing these tiny little pegs. But when we remove those pegs, we have a couple different other ways we can display this. First of all, we've got these larger Gatling gun type lasers that we can plug into those eye sockets instead. So now we've got these big old cannons sticking out of the eye sockets, which looks incredibly cool. But if those aren't cool enough, we also have these larger green pieces, which I suppose are supposed to be like larger missiles, maybe big torpedoes or something. And those can also plug into the eye sockets. And that actually gives a really cool new look to the overall Roboskull, because now it looks like he's just got these big, bulging, green glowing eyes, which is incredibly cool. Now, this is where things get even more fun because Roboskull comes with 4 of these awesome fiery blast effects. And there are several different things we can do with these. First of all, each of the wings has 4 cannons on them. So you can plug these into those cannons and you can make it look as though Roboskull is blasting as he's flying through the air. Another thing that you can do with these is you can use them with the eye sockets here. So if I wanted to unplug this green missile, we can actually plug that fire burst into the eye socket. It fits in that same peg hole. So you can make it look like it's just blasting these little effects out of the eyes. But another thing that's really cool is you can take those green torpedoes, and you can see there's a little peg hole on the back of them. Those will plug onto the front of those blast effects, and now you can make it look like it's blasting the torpedo right out of the eye socket of the Roboskull. It is really impressive the ways that you can display this thing in action. The last effect that this comes with is a very cool one as well. It's this very large translucent blue electrical effect, this lightning effect. And this will plug into that socket I showed you that was down in the mouth. So if we open the jaw on this, you'll notice there is that one larger hole down there, which is perfect for this lightning effect. So you can plug that into the mouth, and now it looks like this giant red skull is shooting lightning from its mouth. I mean, seriously, this has got to be one of the most metal toys that has ever existed. So the cockpit easily opens up just by grasping onto the top, almost like this mohawk type portion up here, and pulling upwards, and that rolls up. And inside the cockpit, it's actually quite detailed. You'll see there's these great decals in there that look like panels with displays all over them, and you'll notice that there are 2 seats in here sized for 4-inch figures. They are back-to-back seats. One is facing the rear, which is meant to control those rear cannons, and the other one is facing forwards. That is our pilot. Now, one thing that's cool, I'm going to pull this out so you guys can see it. The chairs are removable from the inside of the cockpit there. And the arms on here are nicely articulated, so you can easily fold the arms up, forwards, so that way you'll be able to seat your figure there, and you'll be able to get them to grasp onto those panels, those control sticks, very easily. You'll also see that even the control sticks have details on there. There's little decals on there that have like individual screens. There's colored buttons, little control pads. It is really, really nicely detailed. And what's great about this is this works perfect for your modern 4-inch figures, like the ones that came with the ship here, like the Blood Wolf, or you can use it for your O-ring figures. Now, one of the things that's really cool is that the vintage style O-ring figure Skeletron, for example, that the folks here at Skeletron made, you can actually rotate the wrists on that, which is good for being able to hold on to the control panel. Some of your vintage O-rings may not be able to hold those handles perfectly, but you can still fit them in there. And heck, just for fun, I even threw a vintage Action Force Skeletron in there, and man, I love it. I think it's so cool. So if you want to make it so that this fits your 6-inch figures instead, you can see how I removed the seat. It just has these 3 kind of pegs on the bottom that plug into the slots that are on the inside of that cockpit there. And if we want to move it to 6 inches, well, there's an alternate chair. So we'll just take out this double seater that's meant for the 4-inchers, and we bring in this single seater that is meant for your 6-inch figures. It's a larger seat, only 1 seater if you're making it for 6-inch figures. You can see that the arms on the chair articulate the same way, but it's very easy just to place this inside, find those little peg holes, press down, it locks in place, and now you can fit your 6-inch figures in there like your G.I. Joe Classified. Now I will say, I feel like the 6-inch figures feel a little cramped in there. Like he looks a little big sitting inside that cockpit, but you can close the lid on him just fine. He does fit in there. So this does work for your 6-inch figures. I think personally, I prefer this for the more 4-inch scale figures, but it's really cool that they thought ahead and that they made this so that it could fit in with things like your G.I. Joe Classified if that's something that you want to do. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is this flight stand. Now, this flight stand was not included with the base Roboskull Mark II vehicle. It was an add-on on the Kickstarter, so it was an extra purchase. But I wanted to add it on because I do feel like this is the proper way to display this in your toy collection. If you're just going to set him up on your shelf, you could sit him up there like that, but with the wings being as big as they are, they hang a little low. And so sitting him up on your shelf, he definitely works better if it's in that landed like spider-like pose better. It just has these clear plastic bits up here that the Roboskull just kind of sits on, and they're a little wobbly, but it seems like it's holding it up just fine. I do really like this nice large base down here, and one thing that's really cool about this is you can open up this base. You can see it's got the great little insignia on there, and you can use this for storage, which I love. So any of those little pieces that I'm worried about losing, like those tiny little black pegs, I can put them in here and I don't have to worry about them getting lost. Now, it doesn't fit everything, unfortunately. I can't fit the large electrical piece inside there. It just does not fit. But most of that stuff will fit in there so that I can perfectly store it. I'll know exactly where it is. And I think this looks really nice displayed this way. It's also worth noting that this comes with 2 different heights. So I can pop these larger ones off and make lower ones. It's more like a takeoff type flight pose. So it's a little lower to the ground, angled a little more upwards, but this one's like the tall one, like it's fully in flight. That's the one that I like the best. Another cool thing about that flight stand, if you pick it up, is it comes with a few extra little blast effects. So now we've got these tiny little blue lasers that can fit into these smaller cannons here under the chin, which is really cool. And we've got a couple of these smaller little orange blast effects, which are perfect for plugging into those Gatling guns that stick out of the eye sockets. So even more blast that you can add to this, which just makes it look incredibly cool if you completely fill it out with all those blast effects. Like it's just flying into battle, blasting away. So cool. I gotta find a good spot on my shelf because I love just how menacing this thing looks. It is such a cool toy. So there you go, my friends. A look at the brand new Roboskull Mk II. Even if you have no connection to Action Force or the history behind this toy, you don't know anything about the Red Shadows or Skeletron, this is still a really cool toy. And it's a standalone toy. It's its own thing. And that's one of the things that makes this so exciting to me. Look, no shade at any of those other companies that are doing crowdfunding campaigns. I get it. But as a toy collector who's been buying stuff for a long time, the reality of my situation is that I just don't have the space, nor do I want to spend all that money on large items unless it's something that really stands out as something special, something that really grabs my attention and just looks like a piece that would be fun to own and display on my shelves. And Roboskull was that for me. And I am so happy that I took the plunge on this. I think this is an incredibly cool toy. And as somebody who's been experiencing sort of this G.I. Joe renaissance myself, especially with the O-ring stuff and all of the wackier things, I mean, that's what I love. I like the ninjas, I like the robots, I like skeletons. This thing is right up my alley. I love it. I think it's a really, really well-made toy. I think it's got a lot of really fun features to it, and I think the team behind this created something special and should be really proud of themselves. If you missed out on the Roboskull Kickstarter, this is available now. It'll run you $250. That's a high price, I get it. But honestly, for what you're getting here, I feel like it's a really, really well done toy. I'll link to it, but you can check it out at the official Skeletron website if it's something that you're interested in picking up yourself. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this, especially if you have it. Do you like it as much as me? If you've never seen it before, what are your thoughts on it? Something that looks cool to you? Definitely let me know. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time, my friends.